So when I had first heard about this new movie, Presence, I was under the impression that it was going to be this crazy supernatural horror thriller film, right? It's the first horror film, the first horror endeavor from director Steven Soderbergh. Had no idea who he was, only to find out that he was the director of the Oceans franchise. So that's pretty cool. He did some other random movies like Contagion and Magic Mike and stuff. So he's done a lot of different styles of films. But this, I guess, is his first horror film. And it's supposed to be told through the perspective of the ghost or entity or poltergeist, or as the film shows, presence that lives and resides in this house, right? And it was a pretty cool concept. I mean, it's definitely different. It almost goes along the lines of In a Violent Nature, of following a serial killer, third person view of a serial killer walking around. So I was kind of intrigued, but also like, all right, I wonder how this is going to be, because it's literally filmed from the perspective of the ghost. So when you're watching this film, you feel like at times, you're looking through the camera, right? Like it's just being filmed. But then you realize, oh no, wait, like this, you're supposed to be looking through the eyes of this ghost entity thing, right? So it's kind of unnerving and unsettling at times, but it was a very interesting and very cool concept. And as the trailers started dropping and showing a bit more, I really did think that it was going to be this crazy thriller, like with this family being terrorized by this poltergeist, like the movie Poltergeist, but imagine it being, told through the fucking lens of the poltergeist. I mean, I was like, this is probably going to be really cool. And I must say, it is not at all what I thought it was going to be like. It was definitely completely different. And if anything, it was not scary. It was a little thrilling because, like I said, every time you're watching scenes, you realize that it's not just being filmed. You're supposed to be thinking of it through the eyes of the entity. So it is pretty weird at times, like I said, but it was pretty cool. But it follows the film follows the Payne family, right, which is very ironic because they all are dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of issues. But it follows the Payne family, and they move into this house, and they moved into possibly a new city. Shit, I don't know, because the daughter, she just lost two of her friends to drug overdoses, right? So the daughter is, taking medication, going to therapy and stuff, and when she starts sensing this presence, because she's dealing with this grief, she's able to kind of second sight this presence in the house. The family starts to assume that she's, kind of losing it. She's going crazy. Obviously her friends took hard drugs and died, overdosed, and maybe that's exactly what she was doing. Obviously that's what they would think. And she ends up kind of like really seeing this entity and giving this entity, I guess, control. Because how they say, like, if a ghost or a demon or whatever it is, the more you acknowledge it, the more power it gets. And that's pretty much kind of what happens throughout this movie. The more she acknowledges it, I want to say that the stronger this entity becomes. So then fast forward, right, a little bit of time. They're living in the house now and settled in. And the son, right, well, his name is Tyler, right? The daughter's name is Chloe. And so Tyler is a total, like, dick to Chloe, right? Because he's just, like, the favorite child now. Lucy Liu plays the mom, which is hilarious. I love Lucy Liu. Anything it's always cool to see her come back, to film. But she plays the mom, and then I forget who the father was, but the father, is totally on the daughter's side, trying to be there for her. But the mom is like, no, we gotta. I want to focus on my son, and for whatever reason, she just wants to lift up her son because her son is gonna be doing. He's doing so well in like sports and all this crap or whatever, right? But she's totally neglecting her daughter. The son ends up making friends with this guy named Ryan, who is this random white surfer kid who smokes weed and shit, and he ends up kind of taking a liking to Chloe and ends up wanting to have like a little relationship with her behind the brother's back, which is kind of weird, right? Because you would assume that she's obviously going through this stuff. Why wouldn't you just tell the brother, like, hey, I kind of like your sister, and like I want to be there for her and just kind of like help her out through these tough times, But instead they kind of like make it a secret, and they kind of like sleep around and stuff or whatever, and he ends up trying to like drug her at one point. Or maybe not drug her, but like definitely, get her to take some pills in a sense. And the entity is like, in a sense, has her back, right? Like it stops him from drugging her. And she thinks it's her friend that passed away. Her friend's name was Nadia. So she thinks it's Nadia, and she tells her parents like, oh, there's this ghost in the house. And they're like, what? Like, nah, you're crazy. You're seeing things, until they actually experience like a little poltergeist moment, right? In the brother's room, all this stuff starts getting flung around, the lights are flickering, all this shit's happening, and they're like, oh man, there's a freaking ghost here, right? So now they're just like, oh shit, we're living in this house with a ghost. And it's pretty interesting. Like I said, all the camera work and the camera is the ghost. So as you're seeing everything, you're seeing it how the ghost sees it. So it's very, very like, what the heck, when you really think about that, it is pretty cool. But then so you find out later that Ryan actually is like some psychopath, right? He enjoys the idea of death. He likes the thought of death. He wonders like what is in between the veil of like life and death, like when you're barely holding on to life, like what is it that people feel or see or sense, the euphoria or whatever. And did a little too many drugs for sure throughout his life.
You hear the bell? Did we get to school? What's up? We're here. Oh, we're not.
The parents go away on vacation, and the parents are also going through some turmoil, right, with their finances, and apparently some things are going on with the wife, and the husband's not sure if he wants to stay in the marriage and everything. So all this stuff's going on that the ghost is seeing and like just kind of taking in, and you expect some blow up later, but Ryan and Chloe end up saying, all right, well, we're gonna. Parents are gone. She wants him to come over so he can like spend the night and they can like mess around or whatever. So he's like, all right, well, I'll take care of your brother because your brother will be here or whatever. And the brother's like, like I said, he's a total dick to his sister. So it's like I don't think he really would have cared, but it's like it is just kind of interesting how Ryan doesn't want to let the brother in on it. It's just interesting, right? So he comes over, him and the brother are drinking, and he ends up putting like sleeping pills, crushed up sleeping pills in the brother's drink. Brother passes out. He goes up and he ends up drugging Chloe this time for real. Like he tries to drug her before, and the entity totally stops it. But this time it goes through with it, and the camera's following him the entire time. So I thought some crazy shit was gonna happen, or he was gonna get stabbed, or like possessed, or something. Or I thought she was gonna get possessed. The brother is something I thought bad was gonna happen, right? And then it turns out, right, he goes up, he gives her the drugs, she drinks it, she doesn't know, unbeknownst to her. And I want to say it had to have been like ketamine or something, because she immediately goes numb after like 2 minutes. She goes completely numb, and then he's like laying on top of her, and he's like explaining his whole love of death, and he gets like some saran wrap, and he's like, tripping out over how thin it is, and he puts it over her face, and as she's breathing in the saran wrap, but she's like not able to breathe as well, right? And then he takes it off, and she like, gasps slightly, but she can't move, she has no control over her body at all. He's doing this over and over again to her, and then he finally like lets the cat out of the bag that he was actually the one that killed her two friends. They didn't die of an overdose. It was him drugging them and then literally making them stop breathing. Like it's pretty sick if you think about it, obviously. And so the entity, in seeing all this, goes down to the living room and wakes up the brother somehow through like I don't even know, some psychic connection, wakes up the brother, and the brother wakes up all like, freaked out or whatever, and he runs up and catches Ryan, on top of his sister, trying to kill her in a sense, and he tackles him outside of a window, and they both like end up perishing outside of the window. It was pretty random. It was pretty wild. I was like, holy shit, wasn't expecting that to happen. But earlier in the film, right, they end up bringing, after that whole poltergeist scene that they have in the bedroom, they end up bringing this medium over, and she ends up stating that, yes, there is a presence in this house. Some type of entity is in this house, but, it may not know who it is or what it is. It could be in the past, present, or future from when it was alive. Like, you don't know who it was. So I didn't think it was the daughter's friend, Nadia. I thought it might have been someone who would have died in the house, right? So I still think it is pretty much someone who died in the house. But, I researched it because I wanted to see what it was, what people actually thought, or maybe what the director said. But apparently the ghost is supposed to be the ghost of the brother, Tyler, because he neglected his sister, and he played such cruel jokes on her, and, really just disliked his sister during that time, that he felt this heavy guilt, I guess. And so when he fell out of that window and died, his soul was thrown back in time. He's like caught in a paradox now, like some type of time paradox. And he was thrown back in time to when they first moved into that house. And it's like now his ghost is supposed to like save her and like kind of repeat this cycle of like killing himself and bringing him back, killing himself and bringing him back. It's kind of sad, right? Because I mean, at the end of the film, the mom sees the reflection of the brother in this old mirror in the house, and the medium says like, oh, mirrors are like old cameras, they can take photos and hold so much, over time or whatever. And so she sees his reflection. So I assume that maybe the entity was like, oh, like your son still misses you, your son loves you, or like maybe like I had to trade places with him. Or a soul for a soul, because then the soul that entity ascends into like heaven. It ascends into like bright light by the end of the movie. So I assume that like, all right, well, the soul's at rest now, but I would have thought it was someone else. I wouldn't have thought in a million years that it was the brother, right? I didn't even think it was the friend. But when you look it up, apparently the director says, yeah, it was the brother, and that he just carried all this guilt, that when he died, his soul just kind of got paradoxed out. So it was very depressing. It was definitely a bland kind of film. It wasn't as scary or anywhere near as thrilling as I thought it was going to be, but it was still a very cool concept. It was executed well enough to be, like I said, unnerving and unsettling in many scenes, because you realize, oh wait, this isn't just being filmed. This is like I'm supposed to be a ghost watching these people talk right now. So it makes it freaky when the camera's like right up on someone, and you're like, oh yeah, it's not a camera, it's a fucking, like I'm a ghost right now. Like, it was crazy. I definitely liked it more than In a Violent Nature. It's definitely not everybody's cup of tea for sure, because it is kind of bland, but it is very interesting. It's very cool. I mean, I don't know. The whole idea and premise of being like that new idea now from the end of last year to this year of being the ghost or demon or serial killer and all that, it's like whatever. Like, I don't really care about that. I'd rather just see crazy shit happen. I don't want to be the entity just sitting around waiting for something to happen. You know what I mean? But for what it's worth, for being his first horror film and being such a unique idea, congratulations, because he did a pretty damn good job. But yeah, so I would definitely suggest to check it out, right? The movie's called Presence. It may not be for everybody, but I definitely think, most people could enjoy it, for what it's worth. But yeah, this has been Ghost in the Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. I've been a bit under the weather the past couple days, so I wasn't able to get this video out as fast as I would have liked to, but yeah, you guys all have a fantastic one. It's just so cold. Oh, the winter season is still upon us. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic rest of your night. Peace.